And so I was just practicing one of our poses just before I turned on the computer. There we go. Right, so we're going to take our feet about hip distance apart. Have a little softness in our knees. And we're just going to swing our arms to begin with. And letting our arms be a heavy weight. And keep that nice bend in your knees. You might even come onto the ball of the foot as you swing from side to side. Particularly if it feels like it's twisting in your knee. And then as we continue, start to shift your attention to your breath. So breathing in through your nose, maybe sighing it out of the mouth. And we're going to take 3 more rounds of breath as we swing our arms here. And at the end of your next exhale, bringing your arms back to your sides. Taking a moment, maybe closing the eyes or letting your focus soften to the wall or to the floor. Still that little softness in your knees. And take a moment to lightly scan down through your body from your head. Just being curious, being nosy, noticing sensation and tingling, pulsing, whatever your attention is drawn to as you move down through the body. Notice if you do that, if the head's craning back, see if we can get a bit of length in the back of the neck. If the toes or the fingers seem to be gripping, give them a little wiggle just to soften those. And the jaw, can we get the jaw a little softer? Find a bit more softness and space in the belly. And when you arrive down at the soles of your feet where they meet the floor, settle your attention at those 2 contact points with your body and the earth. And as you breathe in, sense your breath moving from the soles of the feet right up through your body to the crown of your head. And as you breathe out like a wave, it travels down from the crown right down to the soles of the feet. And keep that going. Can we keep our attention with that upward wave through the body to the crown? And that downward wave of breath right down into the earth. And keep that going for a few more rounds of breath. Find that upward flow and that downward flow. Great. 2 more breaths. Wonderful stuff. And then from here, we're going to come into our first position. Now, if you just had dinner, you don't have to take this option with the blanket, because we're going to take our folded blanket or our thin cushion and put it right up into our hip creases, soften in your knees and begin to fold over it. If you have just had dinner, this might not be very comfortable, so feel free to park the blanket if that doesn't feel right for you. Either having it with or without, softening in your knees, lengthening the chest forward, and then come on all the way down. And you can take your feet a little bit wider than the hips even, especially if this feels a little more sturdy. And we're going to start by just letting the arms really dangle and hang. Now, if this feels quite strong, if it feels like it's pulling on your hamstrings, if they're a bit shaky, then you can always come to your chair or your bed and just rest your hands on there, just to take a little bit of the weight out of the hamstrings when we've only just arrived in class. And however you choose to stay here, let's start to shift our attention to the breath and really allow the belly to be soft. So as you breathe in, feel that expansion of the breath in the belly. And that gentle softening back as you breathe out. Keep that going. Nice deep breath into the belly. And letting it go. 2 more breaths just like this. Now, option to stay here, or option to clasp your fingers and just nestle them around the back of your head. Now, we're not yanking our head into any positions here at all. And just nestling the head into the hands. This is particularly helpful if you find that your head wants to keep on looking up. And it just finds a little more length in the back of the neck. Keep your jaw super soft here. I'm going to take 3 more breaths. Wonderful. Soften your knees. We're going to slowly roll up through the spine. If your back's feeling a little sore or tight, or there's any spinal injuries you haven't mentioned, come up with a flat back. Otherwise, let's take our time. Slowly roll up. Keep your knees bent as you make your way all the way up. Chin's the last thing that's going to lift here. And when you get to the top, take a moment or two just to adjust not being upside down. And let's take 2 big breaths in through our nose and blow it out of the smallest part in between our lips. Great stuff. And then from here, we're going to make our way down to a comfortable seat. So getting maybe something underneath your hips as you come down to cross-legged or kneeling, more to a chair if that feels better for you. And getting a little support underneath the knees if they're hoiking up here. Let's start by just taking a moment to see how we feel in our bodies now. You might close the eyes for this if that feels comfortable to do so. As if we're taking a snapshot of the boundaries of our body. How does it feel to be in your body right now? Any areas of tiredness, ease, tension, space? And then from sensation, begin to sense the weight of the body. And the weight of the body traveling down into the earth. And the stability of that support. And then from then begin to shift your attention to your quality of attention. How does it feel right now to rest our focus on the breath and the body? Does it feel nourishing, really easy? Does it feel like your mind's wandering or darting around this evening? And there's no right or wrong answer to this at all. It's just simply noticing. What's the quality of the attention that you're working with this evening? Or certainly starting to work with. That can change, of course. And let's take a deep breath in, filling right up to the top of your breath. And as we breathe out, roll the chin down towards the chest. Breathe in, roll left ear to left shoulder. Breathe out, roll it down. Breathe in, right ear to right shoulder. Then breathe out, roll it down. And keep that going. Breath in, left ear to left shoulder. Breathe out, bring it down. Breathe in, right ear to right shoulder. And breathe out, bring it down. Now this time we're going to breathe in, roll it, left ear to left shoulder, and stay here. Softening that left shoulder down if it's sneaking up to meet the ear. Soften your jaw, give it a wiggle if it's gripping. And send that right arm out to the right. Lovely. Keep that going for 2 more breaths. Wonderful. And then breathe out, float the arm down. Send that chin back down and towards the chest. And then breathe in, roll right ear to right shoulder. Softening right shoulder down away from the ear. And then maybe floating that left arm up to about shoulder height. Maybe strong and active through the hand, maybe keeping the hand a bit soft. Try both and see what enables you to keep breathing steadily as you do. And let's breathe out, float that left hand down, roll the chin back down and towards the chest. Give your shoulders a roll and a wiggle. And then start to lift the chin up. Cool. So from here we're going to set up our first position. And we're going to start with a fish pose. This is quite a strong heart opener, chest opener. So really pay attention to how this is working for you. I'll offer you a few different options if it feels too strong. So the first option is to take your bolster or bolster equivalent, and we're going to have it at a slight angle with a block underneath it. Or you can get some more cushions, just so it's ever so slightly at an angle. And then have some other cushions around you because they might come in handy. So first we try it out. And we want the tip of this bolster to be right at the base of your shoulder blades in the centre. Basically where your bra strap runs. And that's where our back meets the bolster. And we're going to either have our legs straight or our knees bent. And then we start to bring our chest and our head back. Now, a few things to be conscious of. If this is feeling way too strong across the shoulders or anywhere, then we can always get rid of this block underneath and simply come and lie down on it like this. This will still give you the chest opening you're looking for without it feeling too exposing. Now, these extra bit of support here are for elbows, so they're not floating in space. Folding up cushions or blankets so that you have something to rest onto with your elbows. And then finally, if this feels like quite a strong arch for your lower back, then getting a folded blanket, placing it into that space between your lower back and the ground. And then see how that feels. If it feels still too strong for your lower back, then get rid of the stronger angle of your bolster and remove that block from underneath it. Now, once you've got everything that you need here, and shuffling those shoulders down the back and away from the ears, let your hands turn up, your fingers curl and be soft. And take these first few moments of the practice to just see how the body falls into this. Is there space for a little more softening to happen? Now, final option, if this tilt seems a little too strong for your neck, when you get your blanket, unfold it so it's a thin support. Pop it underneath your head and then fill the nape of your neck just with one roll of the blanket. So you've got like a very thin sausage just to fill that space. And that should hopefully stop the neck from feeling like it's really compressing. And then start to shine all of our attention across the chest, across the heart space. And as we do, start to feel and notice the movement of breath across the heart and the chest. And sense that filling of breath right down from your pubic bone, right up to the collarbones with every in-breath. And this downward flow of softening, of spreading as you breathe out right back down into your belly. We feel this gentle filling of breath from pubic bone to collarbones. And collarbones down back into the pelvis. Following this gentle wave of breath here. And perhaps as an invitation to accompany the breath with an ujjayi style of breathing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. Imagine you're steaming up your sunglasses, but with your lips closed. You get that little whisper at the back of the throat. Sometimes known as an ocean breath. And certainly to accompany this pose, that feels very fitting. This cooling, fluid, easy breath. And we're going to stay here for one more minute. Noticing how only even in this stillness, this holding of the pose, how much movement we still experience from the breath. From the breath itself and the gentle release that comes with every exhale. And the back of the body continues to melt and spread around the bolster. The legs can be passive and weighty. The arms too can really rest heavy here. Now to come out of this pose, let's start by just wiggling our fingers and our toes. And keeping the chest and the head as they are, start by walking your feet towards your bum. And then start to soften your tailbone down. So we're just tilting the pelvis back just to release any of that back bend first. And then come to roll onto your left side. And then using your arms to slowly press yourself up to a comfortable seat. taking a moment here just to see how you're doing and how you're feeling and how you're breathing. So we're going to come into all fours from here. So if you want to get something underneath your knees, a blanket or something, then please do. And we're going to start with our wrists underneath our shoulders. I'm going to start by just taking a few cat-cows. So as we breathe in, begin to soften the belly, lift the tailbone and the chin. And as we breathe out, we're going to press down through the hands, zip the navel in towards the spine. Let's take that one more time. Breathing in, stretching the belly, lifting the chin. And breathing out. Let's take that once more. Breath in. Finding that ujjayi whisper of breath. And breathe out. Wonderful stuff. Now we're going to come to a flat back. Step our right foot to the outside of our right hand. Toes can point out slightly to the side. That's absolutely fine. I'm just going to rock back and forth here. Now, if this feels like you're kind of having to reach for the floor, getting some blocks underneath your hands can be really helpful here, just to bring the floor to you a little bit more. We're just going to rock backwards and forwards. We're going to accompany this with a Brahmari breath. So as we breathe in, we rock the weight forward. As we breathe out, we hum out our exhale. Keep that going. Breath in, roll over that front foot. And breath out. Keep it going at your pace of breath, not mine. Great stuff. Once more on this side, breathing in and out. Breathing in, ripple forward, knee on top of that ankle as opposed to overshotting it. Keeping that back toe curled under to support your knee. Just take a little gentle twist. So right hand comes onto the knee. And maybe looking out over that back shoulder. If that causes more tension in your neck, keep looking down or to the side. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to take 4 breaths here, Brahmari breaths here. So full breath in. Good. 2 more breaths. Wonderful stuff. Taking your hand back down to the floor, shifting the weight back, bringing that right knee back to the floor, finding all fours. 2 rounds of cat-cow in the middle here. Breath in, stretch the belly, lift the chin. Breath out, Brahmari. Breathing in, finding space in the front. And breath out. Great stuff. Coming to a flat back. Stepping left foot to the outside of that left hand. Ever so slightly turning those toes out. Getting support underneath that back knee if you need it. We're going to do that just as we did on the other side. Brahmari breath on the exhale. So breath in, broaden the chest. Breath out, send back the hips. Doing 5 more at your pace. And seeing it how it might be to perhaps close the eyes if that feels comfortable to do so. Breathing in, coming forward here, and taking that little twist on the other side. So, left hand comes onto that left thigh, pressing into that pressing that left hand into the thigh here. Deciding where your head needs to look so you have the least effort. And taking 4 more breaths. Returning your left hand to the floor, shifting the hips back, bringing both knees in line, taking 2 rounds of cat-cow with our bumblebee breath, 2 more rounds. Wonderful stuff. Breathing in, stretching our belly, lifting our chin. And then sending our hips all the way back down towards our heels. Hands onto our knees, taking a moment just to see how you're doing, how you're feeling, how you're breathing. You feel like you're hanging out in your lower back right now, just softening that tailbone back down. And if there's any holding in the hips, just taking a little rock backwards and forwards in the pelvis. Take a moment to notice the quality of your breath now. If there's any leftover sense of tingling from the vibrations of the sound that we make. Just any kind of taste or flavour that's left from that. Great. Now from here we're going to make our way down onto our back, onto our belly, excuse me. And with the option once more, similar to our forward fold, to have a folded blanket to come under our belly. But again, if you just had dinner, it might not be very comfortable. So it's there if you want it. I'm coming to lie down onto our bellies, all the way down. And we're going to start by bringing our feet maybe a little wider than our hips, pointing our toes down and uncurling the toes. Stacking your hands and resting your forehead on the back of your hands. I'm going to keep my head turned to the side so you can hear me speak, but otherwise have your forehead resting straight down. You might need to just shake the hips from side to side a few times if the bum, the glutes are still wanting to grip. And then send your breath right into your stomach so you feel it pressing up against the blanket. So you feel the back of the body rise up and away from the floor on the inhale and soften back on the exhale. And again, checking in, making sure that the forehead is easy, as is the jaw, as is the shoulders, as is the belly, the hips, even the toes and the soles of the feet, making sure there's no gripping there. And this has to be one of the most effective practices to both increase our breath awareness, but also increase our ability to diaphragmatically breathe. So when our belly is compressed in this way, we're compressing our torso. And so when we breathe, our diaphragm has no choice but begin to move with the breath. And if throughout the day we have breathing habits that are shallow, not so diaphragmatic, our diaphragm is like a muscle like any other. It becomes rigid. And so let's think about this as warming up our hamstrings, but for our diaphragm. So yes, the first few breaths might feel a bit sticky. But lying down on the floor on our belly and breathing for 2 minutes can be the practice and reprogramming that our breathing habits need. And so we're going to stay here for another 30 seconds. Sending our breath right down into that compression of the blanket if it's there for you. Even if you haven't used the blanket, this will still be working for you. You might keep your breath in and out through the nose, or you might blow your exhale out of the lips for these last few rounds. Wonderful stuff. So to come out of this, we're going to move on to another prone position, so on our bellies. We're going to start by pressing up onto our forearms. Our elbows are pretty much underneath our shoulders. Our legs are still pretty passive. We're going to press down through our elbows so we can draw the shoulders down the back. And then also pull our elbows back in towards us. So we're pulling our heart through our arms here. Notice if your chin's jutting forward and just gently draw it back. So we've got this long back of neck. Keeping strong through the arms. Keeping deep in the belly with the breath. And actually to accompany that, let's bring in a golden thread breath. So as we breathe in through our nose, full fresh breath in. Find the tiniest parting between your lips and blow out your exhale here. Keeping that going, full fresh breath in. Silk thread of breath out. Keep that going for a few more moments. Wonderful. 2 more breaths. Now, option to stay here, or option to start to walk your hands a little further forward and then lift your elbows off. And this is a strong back bend, further down our back than when we were in our fish at the start of the practice. So can we switch the bum off, making sure that our glutes aren't gripping too much. And if this feels too strong, come on back onto the forearms. We're not going to force ourselves into any position here. And as we hold this just for a few moments, just taking your head from side to side, slow no of your head. Keeping shoulders to the back of the body and away from your ears. And take 2 more of those golden thread breaths. Soften the elbows down if they were lifted. We're going to bring our hands underneath our shoulders. Bring ourselves back into all fours. And just rocking backwards and forwards a few times just to release the lower back after that. Great stuff. So from here we're going to come into a supported pigeon pose. So we'll be gathering all sorts of our cushions and bits and pieces, slowly building this up so it works for us. But let's start by just having a cushion or a chunky rolled up blanket nearby and your bolster. I might bring more stuff into the mix in a minute. So we're going to start by sending our right knee towards our right wrist and sliding our left leg back and uncurl those toes. First things first, this back knee, either getting something underneath it, especially if it feels like it's just not feeling right for that back knee, getting a bit of cushion firstly. If that doesn't feel right to put pressure on it, we spin around so I can show you. And just go ahead and turn that knee out to the side, almost like we're in a swan pose if you're familiar with it. That knee can come out instead of having pressure on the kneecap. Now we're going to get our first bit of cushion and our bolster or chunky sofa cushion. You guys spin around so you can see me again on this side. We're going to get our bolster and pop that right underneath our right bum cheek. Okay. Now for some of us, you might have your foot out almost like a, I don't know what angle that is, but your shin in line with the top of your mat. But again, we're not forcing it. This won't feel great for everyone's knee, so please don't force it into that position if it doesn't feel right. Bringing that foot into your groin, this will still give us that stretch and opening in the hips that we're looking for. Now, as this is underneath our right bum cheek, if you want to have something also underneath that thigh, doing that. And then finally, this is where a block or a good chunky cushion can be helpful here. We're going to come forward. And if you do have a block, you can pop this underneath your forehead. You can bring your head all the way down onto maybe stacked fists or to the floor if that's open to you. Or if you prefer, you can take your hands almost like a little bowl and just rest your cheeks in it. Kind of the same position my daughter looks at me when she's a bit bored. But holding our cheeks here. And then perhaps closing the eyes or letting the focus soften. We're going to stay here for another minute and a half. And again, using these first few moments to wiggle around and really make sure everything is as it needs to be. Giving yourself that support, any extra cushion or support that you need. And each pose in these more restorative and yin practices are incredible opportunities to really strengthen that muscle of tuning in, listening, not making ourselves feel fussy if something doesn't feel right. Actually listening to that and then honouring it. It's an incredible shift in the way that we care for ourselves that can come from these practices. Great stuff. Just another few breaths here. Now to come out of this, keeping your head really heavy as you slowly press yourself all the way up. And let's start to slide that right knee back in line with the left. Take a little wiggle of your hips. And then send the hips right back towards the heels into a little child pose. And it can also be a little wiggly child's pose, so keeping your hips moving from side to side. And then let's come all the way up through all fours and then take that on the other side. So start by sliding that left knee forward, sliding that right knee back, getting any support you need under that right knee. Getting a nice bit of chunky support underneath that left bum cheek. And also supporting the back of that left thigh if needed. Bringing your foot to where feels right for your knee. And you might have your legs almost like this swan-like shape, or have that knee facing down. One is not an easy option, it will just be the right one for your knee. So from here, then deciding if you need any support underneath the head, or if you support your own head. I'm going to use a little block and a folded blanket for my forehead on this side. And making sure that however we are using our arms or not using them, can we find a way to keep the shoulders soft? Even if they're taking the weight of the head. And the jaw and the hips are very much connected when it comes to releasing tension or holding it. So if you've noticed that your teeth are gripping right now, give them a wiggle. And we let the whole mouth relax. Thinking about the sides of the mouth, tongue resting in that lower palate. And can we relax the tongue right down to the root? And from the tongue, relaxing down to the root, can we allow the throat to soften, the neck to find a little more ease. And in turn, allow those shoulders to keep softening and spreading down. Wonderful stuff. We're going to make our way out of this now. So, starting by keeping our head heavy as we press ourselves all the way up. And carefully slide that knee back into all fours and just taking that little rock forwards and backwards here. Not into a full upward dog here, but just letting the hips rock a little further beyond the line of the knees. And then this time we dip the hips back towards the heels and set ourselves up for our next position. So grabbing your bolster or your equivalent of some sturdy support to take your body, we're going to come into a supported child's pose. So first things first, if you're not quite making it to your heels, or it does feel strong or a bit crunchy for your knees, then grabbing a blanket and feeding it right in behind your knees. And trying this can sometimes give us a bit more space in the actual knees themselves, or getting a whole cushion to bridge that gap between your heels and your bum. And then from here, we're going to start to just come forward. Let our arms rest down. Let our forehead rest down or to one side. And so we've got a bit of space for our stomach here just to flow with the breath pretty freely. And begin to just soften your attention back to the breath. Notice how it feels to breathe in this shape. And once that becomes a little more familiar, we're just going to direct our attention as we breathe, a little like as we did at the start of the class. So as you breathe in, sense your breath moving up the front of the body. And as you breathe out, your breath travels right down the back of the body to the toes. Breath in, it loops up the front of the body to the crown. And the breath out loops down the back of the body to the toes. And can we keep our attention moving in this cyclical flow, that upward flow of the breath in through the front of the body, and that downward flow of the breath down the back of the body. And if at any point your mind wanders, it wanders away from that movement of breath, That wave up the front of the body, that downward wave down the back of the body. Just gently bring it back without any opinion or judgment. Just bring it back each time. Because by the mind wandering, that doesn't make us in any way that we haven't done the practice properly. Actually, in fact, by gently noticing and bringing it back, we are doing the perfect practice. And by not having a judgment or opinion on ourselves when the mind does wander. And that is the kind and compassionate practice. Great. So from here, we're going to start to make our way up. So taking our hands underneath our shoulders, head really heavy as you roll up. And keep your chin drop down and use a hand on the forehead to press yourself up. And take a moment just to see how you're doing. And then from here, we're going to come into our next pose. So, moving any blanket away from the back of your knees. Keeping your bolster where it is. We're going to start by extending our left leg out and bring our right foot in towards the groin. And have that bolster running to the inside of the leg. You might get something also underneath this bent knee. Especially if it feels like it's either folding over on that ankle or the knees hanging out. Just pull the fleshy part away from your sit bones. And then start to bring your left elbow onto the bolster. And then we let our head rest onto our hands. And we might stay here and let our right back of hand rest on the lower back. And we might take the arm up and overhead. We can let that just hang heavy. For the final touches, we can take our right hand and hold onto the back of the head so that we can then lean our head back into our hands. Heavy in the left and leaning back into the right. And quite commonly, the first challenge here is really allowing our head to be supported. But don't worry if that doesn't come straight away. Certainly sending our attention to the jaw, to the neck. The nice long exhale is a good place to start. And you might find after a few breaths you can creep your elbow a little further away. Again, this isn't a pose to be setting goals to, more about settling into. And find that gentle ocean breath, that gentle ujjayi breath. And shine all of your attention on that open right side of the rib cage, of the armpit, as if you're shining your spotlight all on this space here. 3 more rounds of breath here. Now, as you next breathe out, just rocking the chest down to face the floor. And taking one hand and the other hand onto the bolster and slowly press yourself up that way. And twist to the middle. Just take a moment. Settling breath in the middle. Then we're going to swap that all around. So supporting this left knee as it comes in. And sending our right leg out. And then once you have all that support, then starting to bring our right elbow onto that bolster here. And starting to support the head. And then deciding where you want to go with this left arm. You might need a little bit of time to warm up before the arm comes over. If that's the case, do that. Take your time. There is certainly no rush in this class. We're going to take 6 more rounds of breath here. Can we allow our attention to stay with the whole length of our inhale and the whole length of our exhale? Following that inhale as it touches the nostrils until it moves right down into the lungs. And follow the breath out as it carefully moves back out the body and leaves the nostrils. Follow its path from start to end. Great stuff. So on your next breath out, begin to slowly turn your chest to face the floor. Use your left hand on the floor to support you and carefully press yourself up. Oh, and untwist in the middle and just see how you're doing after that. Great. And then collect both knees in and hug everything into the middle. Wrap your arms round your shins, drop your nose towards your knees. And let's lift the chin. We're going to take a little wider forward bend now. And so taking your feet wide, but so that you can still comfortably sit on your sit bones, so without your tailbone curling under. And it might mean that you need to get a cushion underneath your hips for this, that's totally fine. And likewise, if you feel like your knees are locking when they extend, popping a little, rolled up towel or a little blanket underneath each of your knees, just to stop that from happening. We're going to start by really flexing through the feet, spreading through your toes. So I'm going to take a twist. So as we breathe in, see if we can get a little bit longer. And as we breathe out, we're going to twist over to the right. So that left hand comes to the right thigh. That right hand comes to the floor behind us. Option to look out over that back shoulder, but if that feels too strong, keep your chin in the center of the chest. That's all good. We're going to take 4 breaths, breathing in through the nose and blowing out of our lips. Breathing into the middle. And take a settling breath in the middle. A little wiggle if a wiggle feels good. And as you breathe out, come into twist onto the other side. Right hand to the outside of that left thigh. Left hand to the floor behind us. Use that back hand to stop us from collapsing in the lower back as well. 4 of those golden thread breaths on this side. Great stuff. Breathe in, coming back through the middle. And then from here, we're going to take a forward fold. So a few options. Firstly, if you've got your dining chair, you can have that in front of you. Show you that option here. And if you've got a slightly cold, uncomfortable dining chair like mine, popping a cushion on it so that it's a bit more warm and comfortable. You might come and rest your arms, your head, your forehead down. Option number 1. Option 2, if you have a bolster, you can pop a block or 2 just to stack it up. And come to lay down onto it. And option 3 is to get rid of the stacking and come down onto your bolster this way. Now we're going to be here for 2 minutes. So choose one that you really feel that you can settle into. And then once you're here, you can let those toes soften, let the soles of your feet soften. And noticing if we're not quite surrendering the weight of our torso into the bolster. It's interesting, we can be micro holding on. Really noticing if maybe we need to take our arms a little further away from us so they're not tempted to take weight. Allowing the stomach to be soft so our core's not holding on. To really allow ourselves to be held. And sometimes a process, not something we can simply fall into in a moment. Wonderful stuff. So from here, taking some weight into the hands, keep your head really heavy, roll all the way up. Collect your hands under your knees and bring them in, support them in. And taking a moment just to hug yourself in. And let's rock out the pelvis a little, so just pushing anything out the way for a moment. Hands onto your shins. We're going to breathe in, draw our chest up and through. And then breathe out, let your tailbone roll under, so your hands holding the weight of your body. And taking that 3 more times, breathing in, lifting up and through. And breathing out, tailbone rolls under. 2 more at your pace of breath. And then coming to rise all the way up and across our ankles. We're going to make our way all the way onto our backs from here. And when you come down onto your back, start with your knees bent and the soles of the feet on the floor. Having your bolster or your bolster equivalent nearby, so we can use it in a moment. And start by having our tailbone softening down towards our heels, our spine is straight. And just coming back into this very neutral, supported place before we move on. Just giving our body a moment to catch up. And so from here, we're going to lift up our hips. So pressing down equally through your feet. Peel the tailbone, the lower back and then the middle back. And then grabbing bolster or a sturdy cushion and then popping that underneath the back of your pelvis here. You might need to wiggle around a little bit just so it feels even and supported. Now taking a moment here, noticing this ever so slight adjustment to our pose. And how the back, how the pelvis, how the pelvic floor has adjusted to this slight shift in angle. Maybe even resting your hands on your stomach and feeling your breath here. Now keeping your left foot down, we're going to bring our right knee in towards the body and clasp our hands around that shin. And give everything a little hug. Maybe take a few circles of that knee in both directions. And then we're going to turn our right knee out, flex through that right ankle, and pop that right ankle on that left knee. Turns into a bit of twister after a while. Now you might stay here. So you might start to lift that left foot off as well. Feed your right hand in between your legs, your left arm around the outside of the thigh, and clasp around the back of it. And keep flexing through that right foot. Now you might stay here, you might take hold around the front of the shin. We want this right knee to continue drawing out, okay, so it's not dropping in towards our right shoulder. You can use that right elbow up against it just to stop it from dropping. And just like in our pigeon pose, this is a very similar position, just making sure our jaw isn't holding on here as we stay. I'm going to take 3 more breaths. Great stuff. So we're going to start by lowering our left foot down towards the floor and carefully bringing that knee down. And let's take that on the other side. So bringing our left knee in towards the body, giving it a few circles in one direction and in the other. And then placing left ankle above right knee, flexing through that left foot. And then beginning to bring everything in towards you. Thread your arms through, using that left elbow on that left knee, just to stop it from dropping in towards you so much. Can we soften the shoulders down the back? And you might close your eyes here. You might soften your focus. Notice if your head's tilting back. If it is, just drawing the chin down a touch, making sure the back of the neck is long. Great stuff. And then let's carefully let go of that back of thigh. Bring the legs down. Support that left knee back down to the floor. And take a moment just settling here now in this more symmetrical position. Take some nice full breaths into your belly. And now this final position is a version of a plow pose. So you might need a block just to put behind the head, or a good sturdy cushion, or a dining chair. So you might need to grab that. But let's start with the block and we can always build it up. We're going to start by bringing our legs up. An option to stay here. If you want to take it a little further, we're going to flex through the feet and bring the feet towards us. Now the knees can be bent here, totally fine. Option to stay here. Option to lift the bum off the bolster. And so you're supporting your lower back with your hands. And then bring your toes towards your block. And that block might need a bit of wiggling around to be in the right place. If this isn't quite enough height, you either pop another block, or you can come out of this, grab your dining chair, put it behind your head, and then rest your feet on that. Now we're only staying here for 6 breaths, either feet on the block, feet towards the body, or coming into your shoulder stand. Keeping a softness in your belly, the chest is closed here, so you have to find a place for the breath to move. Wonderful stuff. From here, we're going to carefully roll our hips back onto the support of the bolster and then hug both knees in. And then press those knees away and take the soles of the feet to the floor. Stretch our arms all the way up and overhead. And take a few big breaths in through your nose and sigh it out of your mouth. And take a few more satisfying breaths just like that. Great. You're going to press down through your feet. Lift your hips up. Push that bolster away. And then lower your hips back down onto the floor. And you're going to step your feet just ever so slightly wider than your hips. Take your arms out to the sides. Taking a big breath in. And as you breathe out, let your knees rock over to the left. And big breath in, roll into the middle. And breathe out, let your knees rock over to the right. And keep that going, just moving at your pace of breath, keeping this wide distance between the feet. Back of the neck long, so chin ever so slightly drawn down. Looks like we're trying to create a gentle double chin. Let's take 2 more rocks to each side. Great stuff. And then from here, we're going to bring those knees back in. And we're going to set ourselves up for our final pose. So giving our knees a little hug. And then we're going to rock onto one side and press on all the way up. Now we're going to take our feet onto the chair from here, or onto your sofa, or onto your bed, whatever you've got. You start by bringing that a little closer towards you, or you towards it. Grabbing your bolster, having that to one side. Grabbing a blanket, keeping it folded up. This is going to be our pillow for our head. And the reason that we want a blanket instead of a pillow is we don't actually want our head dropping forward. Just enough for comfort, really. And then grabbing your scarf or your belt, whatever you've got. Excuse me, I'm a bit chilly. I'm just going to put my jumper on. And then setting ourselves up. So first things first, making sure this is a comfy surface, so getting any nice cushion underneath that. Coming to lay down, and then from here, this folded blanket, you're just rolling the bottom lip of your folded blanket just enough to fill the nape of the neck, not enough that it makes our head crane back. And then we're going to press our feet down into the chair, slide our support underneath our pelvis. And with that, you might find you then need to scoot away a little bit or scooch the chair away from you. That's all okay. And then grabbing your belt or scarf and tying it round a loop so that your knees are about hip distance apart. So we're not zipping them up together. Keep a little distance between them. And then from here, we can then rest our legs on the chair. And this means that our knees can rock into the support of the belt, and we don't have any pulling or holding in our groin then. You might rest your hand on your belly. You might have the arms out to the side. And go to what feels right and good for you. Taking these first few moments to settle in. And again, really tuning in to if there is anything else that you need right now. Are you warm enough? Do you need something under your elbows? Whatever it might be, notice it and give that to yourself. Closing the eyes. Letting the whole face begin to release. Release any unnecessary effort across the forehead, the ears, cheeks, the mouth and the gums, the lips, the jaw. Noticing the side of the neck, the back of the neck, and the throat. And for a moment, settle at the throat, feeling that cool wave of the inhale moving down, and the warm wave of the exhale moving back up the throat. Feeling that gentle flow of breath, that easy flow of breath. And let your attention move further down to across the chest. Notice if there is any small micro amendment you can make to create any more ease across the chest, any more space just below the collarbones. And scan down through your shoulders, elbows, forearms, hands. Noticing the backs of the hands and the palms of the hands. And the difference in temperature. Noticing each finger through the thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, little finger. Noticing the whole of both hands, and the whole of both arms, and the whole of both arms alive with sensation. And from the shoulders moving down through the chest, into the rib cage, the front, the sides and the back. Feel how the breath moves the torso, the front, the sides and the back. Moving down through the torso to the belly, the waist and the lower back. Settling here and noticing what you notice. And down through into the pelvis and the hips and the bum. Allowing the pelvis to be weighty here. to yield down into the bolster and the floor beneath you. And then shifting our attention down through our thighs, knees, calves, ankles, the tops of the feet, and the soles of the feet, and big toe, second toes, third toes, fourth toe, little toes, the whole of both feet, and the whole of both legs. Feel the weight and the volume of both legs. Notice their sensation, their aliveness. And then allow your attention to expand back out to include the whole body. Feel the whole body in its entirety. Listening to the whole body as a field of sensation. And all that you notice brings you absolutely into the present. Whether it be a subtlety of temperature, of clothes on your skin, invite it all in. Let it all act as your anchor to being here right now, fully, completely, just for another moment or two. Now begin to deepen your breath. Deepen it in such a way that it fills the whole body. And maybe breathing out, sighing out of the mouth, releasing the whole body. Let's take that a few more times. A full, rich breath in. Let your breath fill you right down to your toes. And then release the whole body with the breath. Take a few more like this. Big breaths in. And releasing breaths out. And let's take one more like that. Very carefully begin to bring the knees in towards the body. Hug the knees in, unloop that belt from your legs. And come to roll onto one side. Taking a moment on your side. And then beginning to press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seat. Letting your hands rest heavy on your thighs. And take a moment to see how you're doing. How do you feel? How are you breathing? What do you notice? I'm going to close the class with an om. Let's bring our hands together for that. Taking a big breath in. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your evening.